3 months ago, I watched my parents swing a baseball bat through a complete stranger's living room, thinking they were destroying my life. Turns out they were handing me the greatest gift I never knew I needed: freedom from the people who were supposed to love me most. I'm Vivian Chen, and I need to tell you about the day I discovered that sometimes the most toxic people in your life share your DNA. But what they didn't know, what nobody in that family ever bothered to learn, was that I wasn't just their second daughter. I was the architect of their entire financial empire, and they had just handed me the sledgehammer. Let me take you back 5 years to when I still believed that blood meant loyalty. I was 28, working as a senior financial analyst at Hartwell & Associates, one of the most respected wealth management firms in the state. My specialty? Complex estate structures and intergenerational wealth transfers. In other words, I knew exactly how rich families kept their money and, more importantly, how they lost it. My parents, Wade and Susan Chen, had built a modest real estate empire over 30 years. Nothing flashy, about 12 rental properties scattered across 3 counties, a small commercial plaza, and a vacation home in Florida. Total value? Roughly $4 million. Not billionaire territory, but comfortable. Very comfortable. What they never understood was that I was the one holding it all together. It started when I was 22, fresh out of my finance degree. Dad's accountant, some guy named Phil who'd been doing their taxes since the Reagan administration, had structured their holdings in a way that was hemorrhaging money to unnecessary taxes and legal vulnerabilities. I spent 3 weekends rebuilding their entire portfolio structure, creating a family trust that saved them approximately $47,000 annually in taxes alone. Dad patted me on the head like I was a golden retriever who'd learned a new trick. "That's nice, sweetheart, but let the adults handle the real decisions." I bit my tongue. I kept helping, because that's what family does, right? Over the next 6 years, I quietly became the invisible backbone of the Chen family finances. I renegotiated their insurance policies, saved them $8,000 a year. I caught a title discrepancy that would have cost them $200,000 in a lawsuit. I set up the LLC structures that protected their personal assets from tenant liability. I was the one who reviewed every lease, every contract, every document that came through, and I did it all for free. Because family. Meanwhile, my older sister Melissa was living her best life, 3 years older, infinitely more charming, perpetually finding herself through a series of increasingly expensive hobbies and business ventures. Her husband Andrew was the kind of man who used words like disruptive and synergy in the same sentence and thought he was the next Elon Musk. Melissa's first business, an artisanal candle company, gone in 18 months along with $40,000 of my parents' money. Melissa's second business, a wellness retreat consulting firm, lasted 8 months, cost $65,000. Each time, my parents wrote the checks without blinking. Each time, they said the same thing: "Melissa has vision, she just needs the right opportunity." And each time I saved them from financial disaster through my actual expertise, they barely noticed. I wasn't bitter. Not yet. I was just invisible. Then came the dinner that changed everything. It was a Saturday in October, the leaves turning gold outside my parents' dining room window. I'd driven an hour to attend our weekly family dinner, carrying printouts of a house I'd finally found, a beautiful 3-bedroom Craftsman I'd been saving for. $420,000. I had $120,000 for the down payment, painstakingly saved over 4 years of living like a monk. "Melissa has wonderful news," Mom announced before I could even pull out my phone. What followed was a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation. Melissa and Andrew were launching a revolutionary meal kit delivery service targeting health-conscious millennials. They had slides, they had projected revenue charts, they had absolutely no understanding of market saturation, supply chain logistics, or the fact that 12 identical companies had already failed in our metro area alone. But they had confidence. Oh, they had so much confidence. "We just need capital for initial development and marketing," Melissa said, her eyes bright with that dangerous combination of desperation and delusion I'd seen too many times before. That's when everyone turned to look at me. Not at Dad, who controlled the family finances. Not at Mom, who managed the day-to-day operations of the rental business. At me. Vivian, honey, Mom said sweetly, we know you've been saving for a house. Melissa mentioned you have about $120,000 put away. We thought, no. The word came out before I could soften it. Flat. Final. Like a door slamming. Melissa's face crumpled. But if you help me now, in 2 years I could give you back double. Your last 2 businesses failed within 18 months. Combined, you've lost over $100,000 of Mom and Dad's money. What exactly makes this one different? The table went silent. How dare you? Mom hissed. Your sister is trying to build something. She has vision. She has dreams. All you do is push papers and count other people's money. I stared at her, at this woman who had never once acknowledged that my paper pushing had saved their family approximately $400,000 over 6 years. Dad delivered the killing blow. Give Melissa the money, Vivian, or don't bother coming back. I stood up slowly, collected my car keys, walked to the door. If I walk out this door, I said quietly, I'm taking more than just myself. Dad laughed. What are you gonna take? Your attitude? I smiled. The kind of smile you give when someone steps into a trap they didn't know existed. I'm going to take every piece of financial structure I've built for this family over the past 6 years, every LLC I created, every trust I designed, every tax strategy I implemented. I'm the sole registered agent on 3 of your properties. I'm the authorized signatory on your umbrella insurance policy. And I'm the only person who knows the password to the master financial dashboard I created, the one that tracks every lease payment, every expense, every tax deadline. The color drained from Dad's face. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Mom sputtered. Those are family assets. You can't just... Actually, I can. And I will. I've spent 6 years being your invisible accountant, your free lawyer, your unpaid financial advisor. You want to cut me out of the family? Fine. But I won't do it quietly. I'll do it professionally. Every transition will be clean, legal, and absolutely devastating to anyone who doesn't understand the systems I built. I walked out without looking back. The next morning, I changed my phone number. The morning after that, I sent a formal letter to every registered agent office, every insurance company, every financial institution where my name appeared on my parents' accounts. The letter was simple. Effective immediately, I am resigning from all fiduciary responsibilities associated with the following entities. Please direct all future correspondence to Wade Chen, primary account holder. Then I sat back and waited. It took exactly 11 days for the first domino to fall. I heard about it through Catherine, a family friend who'd always been kind to me. Vivian, your parents are losing their minds. Something about insurance policies being canceled, and there's some issue with their properties? I smiled into my coffee. What kind of issues? Apparently, some of their LLC filings weren't renewed, and there's a problem with their tax status. Your dad's been on the phone with lawyers all week? Here's what they didn't understand. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I hadn't deleted files or stolen money or done anything illegal. I had simply stopped doing the invisible work I'd been doing for free. The LLC renewals? Those were due every year. I'd been filing them. Now they weren't filed. The insurance umbrella required annual certification by the registered agent. That was me. Now it wasn't anyone. The property tax appeals I'd been handling, those deadlines came and went. The accounting system I'd built, locked behind a password only I knew. They could hire someone to crack it, but that would take weeks. And in the meantime, they had no idea when rent was due, which tenants were behind, or what maintenance issues were pending. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped carrying the weight. And the whole structure I'd built, it collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. 3 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Vivian? It was Dad's voice, stripped of its usual arrogance. We need to talk. I don't have anything to say to you. Please, it's about Melissa. She's in trouble. I should have hung up. I really should have, but curiosity got the better of me. What kind of trouble? Her business. It didn't work out. She borrowed money from some investors, private investors. They're threatening her, Vivian. Real threats. We're scared. I let the silence stretch. And what does this have to do with me? We need help. Financial help. We hoped you might reconsider about the house money. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Let me get this straight. You kicked me out of the family because I wouldn't give Melissa $120,000. Her business failed. Again. She's in debt to dangerous people. And your solution is to ask me for money? Family helps family? You told me I wasn't family anymore, remember? I hung up, but I didn't forget, and I didn't stop watching. Through Catherine, I learned that my parents' empire was crumbling. Without my invisible management, problems multiplied. Tenants stopped paying because no one was sending notices. Maintenance issues escalated because no one was tracking them. Tax deadlines were missed. Insurance claims were denied. In 8 months, they'd lost 3 properties to various legal and financial disasters, none of which would have happened if I'd still been there. But here's the thing about toxic families. They don't learn. They don't look at their own behavior and think, maybe we were wrong. They find someone else to blame. And they found me. One Tuesday morning, I was at my desk at work when my phone buzzed. It was Catherine. "Vivian, I don't know how to tell you this, but your parents just showed up at your old apartment, the one you moved out of last month. They're breaking things. Your old landlord called the police." My heart stopped, then started again, faster. "What do you mean, breaking things?" "They had a baseball bat. They thought it was still your place. The new tenant came home and found them destroying his furniture, screaming about ungrateful daughters and stolen money." I sat very, very still. "They're being arrested right now, Vivian. I thought you should know." I thanked her and hung up. Then I started laughing. Not from joy, from sheer, overwhelming absurdity. They had tried to destroy my home as revenge for not funding Melissa's failures. But I'd moved. Months ago. Quietly, professionally, without telling anyone in that toxic family. They'd committed a home invasion felony on an innocent stranger's apartment, and they did it to themselves. The legal fallout was spectacular. Breaking and entering, destruction of property, criminal mischief. The new tenant, a young accountant named Marcus who had absolutely no connection to me, pressed every possible charge. My parents hired lawyers. The lawyers cost money. Money they didn't have because their rental empire was falling apart. They sold the Florida vacation home to pay for legal fees. They sold the commercial plaza to settle the civil lawsuit Marcus filed, and when the dust settled, they'd lost nearly half their net worth, not because of what I did, but because of what they did trying to get revenge on me. But the real twist? The truly delicious irony? Melissa's dangerous investors turned out to be a legitimate private equity firm that was threatening to sue her for breach of contract. No broken kneecaps, no mysterious threats, just lawyers and legal process. She'd exaggerated the danger to manipulate our parents, and it had worked. They'd given her their emergency fund, their savings, everything they had liquid. And when their legal bills came due, there was nothing left. I found out about all of this through Catherine, who kept me updated with a mixture of horror and fascination. "Your parents are renting a 2-bedroom apartment now, Vivian, all 4 of them crammed in together. Your parents, Melissa, and Andrew. Apparently they fight constantly." "That's unfortunate," I said neutrally. "Melissa blames your parents for enabling her. Your parents blame Melissa for the financial drain. Andrew is apparently sleeping on the couch. It's chaos." I sipped my tea. Fascinating. "Vivian, are you okay with all of this?" I considered the question carefully. "Catherine, I spent 6 years being invisible. I gave them my expertise, my time, my energy, all for free. I saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars they never acknowledged. I built systems that ran their entire business. And when I finally asked them to treat me like a person instead of a resource, they threw me away." I paused. "I didn't do this to them. They did it to themselves. I just stopped preventing it." Meanwhile, my own life had transformed. 3 months after leaving my family, I'd gotten a promotion at work. 6 months after that, I'd been recruited by a competing firm at nearly double my salary. My specialty in family wealth preservation was suddenly in high demand. Ironic, considering my own family had imploded. I bought that craftsman house I'd been dreaming of. Not with the $120,000 I'd saved for a down payment. I'd ended up with enough for a conventional mortgage with 20% down and still had savings left over. And I met someone, Sebastian Reyes, a contract lawyer I connected with through a professional networking group. He was steady, kind, and completely disinterested in family drama. When I told him about my situation, he didn't try to fix it or push reconciliation. He just said, "Sounds like you made the right call. We'd been dating for 8 months when my parents' criminal case finally went to court. By then, I'd been promoted again. I was now a partner track analyst at Wellington Private Wealth, handling portfolios worth more than everything my parents had ever owned combined. My clients were people who understood the value of expertise, who paid for it, respected it, and never expected it for free. Catherine called me the day after the sentencing. "They got probation," she said. "No jail time, but they have to pay full restitution." The judge was apparently pretty harsh in his comments, said something about adults who should have known better. Restitution to Marcus? Yes, about $47,000 for property damage and emotional distress. I did some quick mental math. That was almost exactly what I'd been saving them annually with my tax strategies. The universe has a sense of humor. And Melissa? Still fighting her lawsuit. She's representing herself now because they can't afford lawyers. It's not going well. I see. There was a long pause. "Vivian, your mother asked me to pass along a message." I waited. "She said she's sorry. She said they made a terrible mistake. She wants to know if there's any way to fix things." I let the silence stretch for a long moment. "Catherine, I appreciate you being the messenger, but no, there's nothing to fix. They didn't make a mistake. They made a choice. They chose to value Melissa's dreams over my contributions. They chose to call me family only when I was useful. They chose to commit a crime against an innocent person because they were angry at me." I took a breath. Choices have consequences. That's not revenge. That's just reality. After I hung up, I sat in my beautiful craftsman house, looking out the window at the garden I'd planted last spring. The roses were blooming. The late afternoon sun caught the kitchen windows like liquid gold, just like I'd always imagined. Sebastian came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Just thinking about architecture." "Architecture?" "Family structures. Financial ones. How you build something that looks solid from the outside, but if you remove one support beam, the invisible one nobody notices, the whole thing collapses." He kissed my temple. "Sounds like a metaphor for something." "It is. It's a metaphor for what happens when people take you for granted." 6 months later, I got the final update. My parents had to declare personal bankruptcy. Their remaining properties were sold to satisfy creditors. Dad's health had deteriorated. The stress had triggered cardiac issues. Mom was working part-time at a retail store, something she hadn't done since she was 20. Melissa and Andrew had finally divorced. The lawsuit she'd been fighting? She lost. Spectacularly. The judgment was $180,000 she didn't have and probably never would. And me? I was engaged to Sebastian. We'd just closed on a larger house, a beautiful 4-bedroom Victorian that I was having renovated to my specifications. My career was thriving. My clients trusted me. My colleagues respected me. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the foundation. Catherine called me one last time, about a year after everything had settled. "Vivian, I need to tell you something. Your mother tried to contact your office." My stomach tightened. What did she want? She'd somehow found out about your engagement. She wanted to know if she could come to the wedding. I closed my eyes. "And what did you tell her?" "I didn't tell her anything. But the receptionist at your office, the one your mother called, she asked me to pass along the message. She said your mother was crying." I thought about that for a long moment. My mother crying, asking to come to my wedding. The woman who'd told me I was worthless compared to my sister. The woman who'd helped plan a home invasion because I wouldn't fund Melissa's failures. "Catherine, here's what I want you to tell her if she asks again." "Yes?" "Tell her that I forgive her, genuinely. Holding on to anger would only hurt me, and I refuse to let her have that power anymore." That's very generous of you. But also tell her that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some relationships are like buildings with rotten foundations. You don't repair them, you walk away before they collapse on you. And the wedding is for people who have earned a place in my life. She hasn't, and she won't. That's not cruelty. It's just boundaries. Catherine was quiet for a moment. "You've changed, Vivian. You're not the same person you were." "No," I agreed. "I'm not. I stopped being invisible. I stopped carrying weight for people who would never appreciate it. I stopped believing that blood meant loyalty or that love had to be unconditional." I paused. I learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are actually the ones who place the most impossible conditions on that love, and sometimes walking away from them is the healthiest thing you can do. The wedding was beautiful. We held it in the backyard of our new house, surrounded by people who actually cared about us. Sebastian's family flew in from New Mexico, warm, welcoming people who treated me like I'd always belonged. My coworkers came. My friends came. People who saw me, who valued me, who never once asked me to sacrifice myself for their convenience. During the reception, I stood on our back deck, looking out at the crowd of people I'd chosen rather than inherited. Sebastian came up beside me. "What are you thinking about?" "Baseball bats," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Remember the story I told you? About my parents breaking into that stranger's apartment? The night that led to their unraveling?" "Yeah. I've been thinking about what would have happened if they'd found me instead, if I'd still been living there. What do you think would have happened?" I considered it. Honestly, probably the same thing. Eventually, they would have destroyed my things. I would have pressed charges. They would have spent all their money on lawyers and revenge instead of fixing their actual problems. The timeline might have been different, but the destination would have been the same. Because their problems weren't me. Their problems were them. I was just the excuse they used to avoid looking at their own dysfunction. Once I was gone, they found other excuses. Melissa's lawsuit, the investors, each other. They couldn't stop destroying things. It's just what they do. Sebastian nodded slowly. "That's pretty profound. It's just observation. When you work in wealth management, you see it all the time. Families that build empires and families that destroy them. The difference is never the money. It's always the people. And us? What kind of family are we?" I turned to face him, took both his hands in mine. "We're the kind that knows foundations matter. That invisible work deserves recognition. That love isn't about extraction. It's about contribution. We're the kind of family I always wanted and never had." He kissed me softly. "I like being that kind of family." "Me too." 3 months later, I got an email. It came to my old address, the one I barely checked anymore. The subject line was simply, "From Melissa." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Vivian, I know you probably won't read this. I know I don't deserve your time or attention, but I wanted to write anyway, even if it's just for myself. I've been doing therapy. Real therapy, not the kind where you pay someone to agree with you. The hard kind, where they make you look at yourself and you don't like what you see. I'm starting to understand what I did, what we all did, how we treated you like a resource instead of a person, how we expected you to give and give without ever giving back. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or money or reconciliation. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to acknowledge the harm I caused, even if the person I harmed never responds. So here it is. I was wrong. I used you. I let Mom and Dad use you. I prioritized my dreams over your actual contributions, and when you finally stood up for yourself, I made you the villain. You weren't the villain. You were the only one who ever really understood what was happening, and we punished you for it. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that at least one of us finally sees you. Melissa." I read the email 3 times. Then I closed it without responding. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but because some doors, once closed, should stay closed. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt. I had everything I needed now. A career I'd earned. A partner who valued me. A home I'd built. Not inherited, not given, but built with my own expertise and effort. The family I was born into had tried to use me up and throw me away. Instead, they'd thrown away the best thing they had without even realizing it. And now I was the foundation of something new, something better, something that would last because it was built on respect rather than obligation. Some people learn too late that invisible work is still work, that expertise has value, that the person holding everything together might one day decide to stop. My family learned that lesson the hard way, and I learned something too, that freedom isn't given, it's chosen. Every day, with every decision, with every boundary you set, and every toxic relationship you walk away from. 3 months ago, I watched my parents swing a baseball bat through a complete stranger's living room, thinking they were destroying my life. But my life wasn't in that apartment anymore. My life was somewhere they couldn't reach, built on foundations they never understood and protected by boundaries they couldn't cross. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't something you do to other people, it's simply becoming someone they can no longer hurt.